Let's start with the news out of Alabama this past week. Doug Jones, the Democrat, very unexpectedly winning. You were a very early supporter of Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I've known Doug since maybe 2003. And when he was the first made the nominee, I stood up in a caucus lunch because they said, well, Doug Jones has been nominated in Alabama, but that's just a super uphill climb. And I stood up and I told my caucus mates, even if it's an uphill climb, Doug Jones is an American hero, and he's exactly the kind of person that we would want to run as a Democrat and that we should support as a Democrat. His civil rights background is so powerful, and when people got to know the story in the caucus are like, absolutely, and then, you know, the rest is history. We're very, very excited to have him.
What do you think he'll bring to the Democratic caucus? Your caucus has been leaning to the left and has a lot of progressives who are pretty loud.
We have, you know, look, we have the big tent. We go blue dog to super progressive, and we tolerate everybody, and that's good. I think the thing that Doug brings is, first, the U.S. attorney background means on judiciary type issues, judges, criminal justice reform. He's got a great track record, but also temperament, you know, civility, the southern thing. You can disagree strongly with somebody, but you're going to do it with a sense of class and civility. And I think he just is going to bring a real good dynamic into the caucus.
You went through the crucible of 2016 in a very personal way, more personally than a lot of people here. What did you learn from that experience that you think your party needs to make sure they don't forget going forward?
Well, I think, and I would add to it, we've had a lot of success in Virginia. You know, we won 10 statewides in a row and 3 presidentials in a row in a state that was redder than red when I got into politics in 2001. And there's some basic lessons that we do in Virginia that I relearned in 2016. Make the campaign about bread and butter, you know, jobs, education, healthcare, really bread and butter stuff, not fringy stuff. Don't infight.
What's fringy stuff to you?
Well, look, this governor's race in Virginia we just run, a doctor, Ralph Northam, was running and winning, talking about health care. The other side was running ads on kicking around immigrants and Confederate statues. Let the other guys do the fringy stuff. We really think bread and butter issues are the key to being successful. Second, don't infight. Again, the Virginia race last month, we were all pulling together. We had a tough primary for governor on the Democratic side, but then everybody got on board. And in the week before the race in Virginia, the National Party was having a circular firing squad about whether the 2016 primary was rigged or not. We don't fight among ourselves in Virginia. The advantage that Dems have right now is that President Trump's unpopular. And Kasie, he's unpopular for a particular reason. We saw it in Virginia and in Alabama. It's not the tax plan, it's not the wall, it's divisiveness. Waking up every day wanting to fight with somebody, that's not what people want in a leader.
There are some litmus tests emerging inside your party. One of them is over this question of impeachment. Do you think that the president should be impeached at this point? That's what some in your party are arguing right now.
Look, I think I'm a critic of the president. I'll stick up for him or vote for appointments if I think they're good. But I think he is hurting the country's reputation. He's hurting the country's values, and he's hurting people that I care about. The impeachment question, I think, is fundamentally a question that you get to when the investigation that Mueller is doing or the intel committees are done. I don't think, because we're investigating some of the most serious things you could level, and I don't think you prematurely cut that off and say, okay, we're going forward now. I think you've got to get to the bottom of the investigation that's being done into the potential, well, what Russia did to cyber hack the election, and then the potential cooperation or collusion between the Trump campaign and transition with the Russian government. You can't prejudge that till you get to the bottom of the investigation. That has to be done first.
Okay. There are some in your party who are also calling for the president to resign because of allegations of sexual misconduct, multiple allegations. Do you think he should resign in the face of those allegations?
Kasie, here's what I think about that. I think that's completely unrealistic. He's not going to resign because he has no shame. You cannot shame this guy. He's not going to resign. So I worry less about what the president should do than what the Senate should do. James Madison, 1787, 230 years ago, they wrote the Constitution to give the Senate very unique powers and some powers to hold an executive in check. They were worried about an executive gone wild.
So which,
and they
do you
wrote
want to use one of those powers?
I want to use all the powers that we have. Look, we have to use every power in the Constitution to keep this president in check. And that means the powers that we have as a Senate minority to slow things down, block appointments if they're bad, shine a spotlight on them, use the 60-vote threshold to block block legislation if we can, but the powers extend beyond that, and we're seeing them come to life. The Article 3 judiciary, judges with life tenure standing up to this president. Governors are standing up to the president. If he pulls out of the Paris Climate Accord, many governors are staying in. Journalists are doing great work against this president to hold him accountable. And the best part of all, the right of the people to peacefully assemble, the right of the people to petition government for redress of grievances, the Women's March, airport protests, the letters and calls I get at my office, people going to town hall meetings to say, don't take away my health care. We're seeing the immune system that was put in place when this Constitution was drafted, largely to check against an overreaching executive. We're seeing it work.
Do you think that the way your party handled Senator Franken's resignation was appropriate, or do you think it went too far based on his behavior?
You know, the behavior was very, very troubling, and it wasn't acceptable, and he acknowledged that. The most important thing about this moment is that we've crossed over a cultural Rubicon. Not that everybody's going to behave well. We haven't passed over that one yet. But the Rubicon I think we've crossed over is you don't have to suffer in silence. If you have been victimized or targeted, you know, inappropriate comments or touching or assault or battery or whatever, you don't have to suffer in silence. I hope that same feeling, which we feel so strongly here in Congress, it should be in every workplace in this country. It should be somebody who's working a shift at a hospital or somebody who's working retail at a Walmart. They should feel the same comfort to come forward. When you cross over that Rubicon, it's hard to make some of the fine distinctions. But in Al's case, look, I could compare Al's case to others, but it was inappropriate behavior, and he acknowledged as such. And it was a real sad day up here to see a senator as good as Al step down, but he took responsibility and he stepped down.